Started.
Okay, so basically the main observation that this is built on is like when you actually look at like proper emails, like one email that we're interested in is like Uber emails as like a sort of light verified proof of location, basically. When you actually look at the information of the email, like 99% of it is just like a bunch of like random HTML shit.
Yes.
And the information that you actually like want to reveal or like do things with is basically just like some tiny portion of it, essentially.
Yeah.
And so like as a result of this, like basically so yeah, whatever parts of the email like you want to either like reveal or I guess so the only stuff that matters here is like for privacy. When like there's a certain part of the email that you want to redact, basically. Everything else you can basically just leave in the open. So let's say like an email, there's like some lines and there's like some part here you want to redact. And then there's like some other part here you want to redact, etc. So as far as I understand in ZK email, like what happens is like part of what's signed in the RSA signature, like one segment of it is like a body hash essentially,
Yes.
right? So when you start from the beginning, so one trick that ZKML has used is like, oh, like you can sort of do a prefix
Yes.
of the body, where like you can skip this part of it, and then from there you can start like doing the entire rest of the hashing inside of the circuit. And what is sort of revealed or regex out is like, then like you take every single character in the rest of the email, you're both doing a SHA hash on it, and you're also doing a regex circuit on it to reveal different components. So the main observation here is that like basically there's only small segments of the email in which the client needs to like actually do proofs themselves to keep privacy. So what you instead do, so I'll first present a version that's like much more like off-chain oriented, where like we don't care about succinctness at all, like we just care about privacy. And so in this case, like what we do is essentially like for these redacted parts of the email, so SHA-56 works in like 512-bit chunks, right?
Yes.
It takes in a 512-bit chunk, it like does some set of operations, and then loads in the next chunk, and then keeps sort of like updating the 256-bit digest. So also, there's some new stuff in this too.
Okay.
So what we do is like we find the 512-bit sort of like section outside the redacted zone, like whatever, like they might be like a little bit larger than like the actual part we need to redact, but up to this point, we basically, there's like some prefix so far, so we'll call this like prefix 1, and then like we'll call this like suffix 1 or something. So all we do is like, we basically just make one ZK proof for this redacted section, where we prove that like, okay, so at the start, the public input is like at the start, there is like some prefix. If I hash everything inside, I get to the suffix. And the other thing we do is that for all the segments inside these redacted zones, before we even start processing this email, we add everything to a Merkle tree. So we take each of the characters in these sections and we add them to a big Merkle tree of characters, essentially, where sequentially, like each leaf is just like a character.
Yeah.
And you sort of concatenate the different redacted zones all into the leaves of the Merkle tree. So you do this beforehand, and inside this proof you verify that like the characters that I hash to get from P1 to S1 are also in the tree that I committed to. So you make one proof for this section, you make another proof for this section, so again it's like P2, S2, and then you do the exact same claim, where it's like from P2 to S2, if I hash everything in between, I get from P2 to S2, and then everything in between, everything inside this range, I'm also putting inside of a Merkle, like, or it's like in this sort of pre-committed Merkle tree that I had before.
So Merkle tree is made for each chunk of the 520 bits input bits, right?
So we have one big Merkle tree
Okay.
concatenating all the different like redacted segments. That's just for ease. That's just like for development ease. I think there's lots of different trade-offs here where you can make them all separate trees so that the hashing is cheaper and stuff like this. But just for ease of explanation, let's assume there's one big Merkle tree with all the redacted sections. So you do this across all the different sections that you want to redact, which in practice ends up being very little. Like when it comes for example, for the Venmo email, there's only a few tiny parts of the Venmo email where there's like a user ID or some other information that you want to keep private or hide, basically, that you might want the user to sort of make the proof themselves. And so blah, 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 you do this for all the different sections of the email that you want to do. And then for the entire rest of the email, like all of this other stuff outside of the redacted zones, again, this is in sort of like the non-succinct form, you just send this entire email to the verifier. And the verifier starts from here and verifies like, okay, so if I start from here, then yes, I get to P1. And then I use this proof to jump to S1. And then I keep going, and then I get from S1, I get to P2. And then I use the proof to jump from here to here, S2, blah, blah, blah. So you go through the whole email, and the verifier does most of the hashing themselves. And so in this case, this is like not succinct in that you're like basically sending the whole email minus some small segments. And then you're sending proofs to basically prove that like, okay, in these certain segments, I've redacted some stuff. The final segment of this is that then you take this Merkle tree and you essentially just do a regex proof, essentially. Where you do like some regex claims on like the tree saying like, okay, I want to reveal like this part of the redacted zones, or I want to reveal this property of the redacted zones, or whatever you want to do, basically. You just regex on the tree that you've done. And this is also a huge, so I guess, yeah, the savings are like multifold. Savings is like here, like you only are SHA hashing small redacted sections on the client. Also for the client, the regex you're doing is on a much smaller part of the email. You're not regexing over the entire email, in which case, like for a lot of the in-between email, it's just like weird like HTML junk like this. It's just like random shit that they have. There's no need to regex over any of that stuff. So yeah, this is the fully like non-succinct version. To make this more succinct, however, like what you can do is essentially like you can combine all of these different like proofs that you're making, where it's like, okay, from P1 to S1, P2 to S2, whatever. You do all of these in one proof as the client, and you also Merkleize all of these guys. Use a different color for this. You Merkleize all of these like P1 S1, P2 S2, PN SN or whatever, and the one output you have is a root of all these different prefixes. This is just for like on-chain succinctness, so that like you don't have a big output on-chain.
So these are indexes, or this is the actual text?
This is the actual prefix and suffix hashes at these different points. You like commit them into your tree, and you commit it with like Poseidon Merkle tree, and then like this sort of blue hashing that's happening. In the non-succinct case, the verifier just does it themselves, like on their computer or something. But if you want to succinctify it, all you have to do essentially is like you just do this hashing inside of the circuit. So you have another circuit that basically says like, okay, from the start, I got to P1, and then it checks that P1 is also like in this tree. And then it starts from S1 and checks that S1 is the next thing, and then it hashes all the way, blah, 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 until it gets to P2. And then it checks that P2 is in this tree, jumps, and it starts from S2, checks that S2 is in this tree, and so it just keeps going. So there's basically just two proofs. There's one client-side proof, which basically like does the hash jumping from P1 to S1, P2 to S2, Pn to Sn. You also, I mean, I guess if you only want two proofs, you also want to combine the regex into this big circuit you're doing here. And then the verifier, you send the rest of the email to like a server that can do the rest of this hashing. And like it can just be some boosted instance. You can use like fucking Binius or Plunky3 or whatever the hell you want. And it just verifies the hashing of the rest of the email. So again, the main stuff you're saving here is that the client only hashes the small segments that it's actually redacting or like removing for privacy. And the regex that the client is doing is much smaller because the overall length of characters that you're regexing on is like way, way, way smaller.
So how do you prove you started the correct hash at P2 compared to S1? Who's doing all that hashing?
So in one case.
The verifier.
Yeah.
So you can't do this on chain.
No, you can do this on chain. You just put that in a proof.
When you put that in a proof.
You verify S1 to P2, the hashing. Like a server makes the proof that if you hash from S1 to P2 with some private or like private public text or whatever, then
sorry, only public text.
This is all public text, yeah.
Okay.
But you just put it as private input so it doesn't appear on chain basically.
I see.
And so you just jump from here to here. You just make proofs of all the different jumps. You combine them into one big circuit, and then you verify that like all the different prefixes and suffixes are the same one that the client had when they were doing the jumps. So yeah, I think this is like, well, this is a really good solution when the email only has small segments that you actually want privacy for, which I claim is true for like most relevant emails, because most of the shit inside of a body is just HTML.
Sachin, do you agree?
I would need another explanation.
Sorry, just with that one sentence, that in most emails, there's only a few pieces of text you need to redact, and the rest of it can be public.
That's true. So there are two kinds of emails that I've looked into multiple emails, at least the payment emails, and there are mostly largely two kinds of emails.
Yeah.
One that is straight up like plain text. Like for example, HDFC email was just straight up plain text. There was not a lot of HTML going on there. There was some HTML, but like the HTML was clubbed together towards the end where they put like images and stuff, right? But then there was this guarantee email. Even the Venmo email was like fully HTML, right? Because all the text was also styled and stuff. So it is mostly
Cool. Also, it's being live streamed.
The residency will be streamed. Yeah, so I think actually, so for some of the use cases that Cursive is thinking about, like roughly we want to have more data that people can make proofs about, because right now, like with NFC taps, it's really good to build like a social graph between people, but like we need like more interesting data that individual people have, so individuals can make better proofs. And also when we're doing these sort of like FHE, PSI style computations, it can be more interesting. It's not just like me and you both know Sachin. It can be like, yeah, we both have like these interests, or we both have like, you know, we've gone to these set of events or something. We're both in like this location right now. So this is something that we are really interested in having, where like essentially like whatever like parts here that like you actually want to commit to, or like you actually have like useful information. Like in the Venmo email, for example, it's like that I paid Ayush. This is a really useful piece of information, that like it's a good symbol that like we're friends, or like we know each other basically. Oh, did someone say something?
Someone was like, "Yo, we doing a late night lecture,"
Holy shit, who is
and
that?
I was like, "No, we're in Osaka."
No, it's very morning right now. This is hype. Yo, let's make a Twitter account. Let's do the whole
watching?
thing.
Huh?
Who is watching?
I don't know, N Stucky seems like some friend of ours from before whose username I don't recognize.
Cool. Hi, Ann Stucky. We're Twitch famous. Yeah, so these different segments. So one thing here is like, yeah, making proofs about them. But I think actually like another really cool thing is like taking this data and like FHE encrypting it basically, where like you upload all of this like interesting data inside of emails to some FHE blob, and then we can start doing computations over this email. That's like another jump. We don't even need that for now, but like, yeah, roughly this is why we're interested in this, because again, there's only small segments of the emails that you actually want to use. Everything else is kind of just like junk HTML, or like Venmo is based in San Francisco kind of thing, you know? So, yeah.
Mostly just Facebook, Twitter,
Yeah.
LinkedIn, all of those are like, they take up a lot of space.
Right.
All the emails.
Yeah. Yeah, so what are your thoughts?
So first, I think yeah, it's very interesting. And it's because so I think it uses a good feature specific to the emails, and also we can use that on-chain with recursive ZKP, and its approach is very useful for the recursion, because it can remove the client side, or it can remove the client side proof generation cost without reducing the privacy protection.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
And I think actually we need recursion, because like we can't define circuits for like every single different length we would want to hash stuff with. So we basically like this like 512-bit SHA hashing chunk we like need to have in Nova, just for like DevX basically. I mean, we could have circuits for like.
Yeah, but Nova can't be proved on chain, so how you can do Nova?
You can do cycle fold, like you can do stuff.
But
But
no
also,
one's ever done it.
I don't care about on-chain. Like for our DevX, we would just use Nova. For different things, like if there's a specific email you want to make a proof about, then you can make a specific like set of proofs for a specific email. But for us, we want to make proofs about like potentially all emails. So like I think our DevX, it doesn't make sense to like compile a Z key and do all this stuff every time when we don't care about succinctness.
I guess I'm not convinced though, because Nova, you still need a pretty big download in ZK and things versus something like, I don't know, like ZK Boo, you wouldn't need that. You could just do it low memory, low ZK size, everything. You don't even need the.
Well, if you just download the Nova params once, you can reuse them like a million times.
Yeah, you only need to download one key, right?
But
Yeah.
isn't the key proportional to the size of the circuit?
Yeah, you just download it once. I'm also like pretty convinced that params can be like parallelized. And, like, we can generate params like on the client much better than is currently happening. Like
Generate params meaning.
So for Nova, there's no trusted setup.
Yeah.
The client can generate their own params.
Sure.
It's just like right now the Rust code for this is like not optimized at all, and when you put it into Wasm, it takes like a boatload of time. But I'm pretty fucking sure we can like do this better.
Okay, we should make a bounty for this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not to just like figure this out in like a day.
Fair.
Just pretty sure this. We can pretty quickly say if this is a yes or no. Like, is it like fully sequential, or like is there any opportunity for parallelization? If there is, we just put it in some web workers and call it a day.
Sure.
Divide by 10.
Alright, and I'm not sure. So one idea about to reduce the verifiers cost or recursive proof generation cost is so can we do some random testing for this competition? So
Yes.
so it means
Like
we use
Zigaboo.
yeah. So we use for example, we compute some challenge randomness from the macro root of these committed values,
Right.
and we only the verifier only checks one or some chunks of this entire shell.
Right.
Shares the computation, and although it still have some soundness error, we can reduce that by repeating the same computation.
Yeah, this is a really good idea. I like briefly thought of this, and I had no idea how to like actually think about soundness and probability and stuff. So it's like we'll just do all of them
Yeah.
basically. But yeah, I think if you can basically check like some subset of these openings, like the P2 to S2 stuff, as a verifier, potentially that's fine because it's just very unlikely that they like fucked something up in between to like get some hash that they wanted. Yeah. I guess Sachin, are you following now, or do it
No,
one
I
quick?
was trying now.
Yeah, you missed the whole like explanation.
I can, now that the drawings are all here, it's like not as bad. So basically, roughly the idea here is like you have a full email, and there's like only small sections of it that are either like private or that you like actually have important information. A lot of other chunks are just like weird HTML, weird text, as you were saying. So the nice thing about SHA is that it's like a Merkle Damgard, and so it works basically in 5 12-bit chunks of the email. So for the different redacted parts of the email, you just basically like find some region around it that like sort of the SHA kind of like breaks into 5 12-bit chunks. And what you do is like the client, all they verify is that like going from this prefix hash to the suffix, if you hash all the characters in between the prefix and the suffix, and also like all the different characters in these zones, you pre-commit to a large Merkle tree, like where each character is like a leaf and it's all happening like sort of in order.
In those specific zones, the ones that are like.
Well, you can make a tree for the specific zones, or you can make one tree over like all the zones if you want, basically. And you just like sort of concatenate the different zones together as leaves on the tree. So yeah, you basically just make proofs, that you're hashing correctly in between these things, and you put them in this big tree. And there's a bunch of different breakdowns we can do. You can either make separate proofs for each of the different zones and separate trees. You can do all of them in one proof. And then like you basically have like one tree with all the different characters and all these different prefixes. And so then the other thing the client does is that for this tree of all the characters that you actually care about, you then do some sort of regex type logic. And the regex here is going to be a lot cheaper because you're not regexing over the whole ass email, you're just regexing over like small chunks of it for the client. So there's a few ways. So, and then the final thing here is like for the actual verifier, you send them the rest of the email, and they verify that like from the start to P1, like if you hash like this part, you get to P1, and then starting from S1 you hash all the way and you get to P2, S2 you hash all the way, get to P3, etc., etc., etc. So the verifier checks the rest of the hashes, and also checks that like the RSA signature includes the hash of the entire body at the very end, basically, when you sort of include proofs for these redacted sections. So there's a couple of ways to make this more succinct, essentially. So one thing you can do is like when the client is generating these proofs, what you do is you commit all of these like prefix suffix hashes to a big Merkle tree, and then so you just have this one root that you like have as a public output, and this is just for like on-chain succinctness. So you're not like outputting all of these hashes, and so then in the non-succinct version, the verifier literally just does the hashing themselves. You send them the whole email minus the redacted parts. But in the on-chain version, the verifier essentially, like they do the hashing inside of a ZKP. And this can happen on a server. It can be like some boosted server that's doing all this hashing. And it verifies that like, okay, you hash from the start, then you get to this P1, and you check that the P1 is also in this like Merkle tree committed by the client. And then you start from S1, you hash the rest of the email, prove that S1 is here, and then you prove that like if you hash all the way to P2, then it's the next one. And you just keep doing this essentially. So you essentially basically just put this whole hashing check inside of a ZK circuit, and you can make this into two proofs, where the client just makes one proof of all the different prefixes and suffixes it has, as well as like the regex in one proof, and then the verifier or like the server or whatever makes another proof verifying that like all the other public parts of the email, if I hash them together, I do indeed get these different prefixes and suffixes. And at the very end, it's also the same hash in the RSA signature.
One thing to take care of is that the non-private but public parts, they have to be static, right?
No, you can just send them to the server.
Just send to the server.
Yeah.
You guys could use this in the basic P2P
Yeah.
emails as well.
Yeah, if you guys
I mean,
want
we're doing it like some version of it, like
yeah.
some version of it.
You're basically doing this except there is no redaction. You just like send everything over to the server, right? Basically. Like it's just server side generated.
Yeah, it's just server-side generation, but there's still like at least two circuits. So you could theoretically like do one of them on the client, one of them on the server.
Or even potentially you could do them separately on the server. The only saving you'll get there is regex time, basically.
Yeah, we are doing it separately on the server.
Okay, you are. Oh, right. You told me about this. Right. Yeah.
So I think one more point is we can use the random linear combination of this one chunk bytes or using the our signature as a randomness.
Wait, whose signature? Oh, the RSA signature.
Our signature.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
signature is the randomness or specific to the hash of the email.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can define the randomness, random linear combination of email body using this signature as a randomness,
Mhm.
and for example, we make a macro tree from the random linear combination of each chunk bytes, and we say we send the value of the email body bytes of the public parts, and the client generates a proof of the client sends proof that when computing the random linear combination of these chunks, its value is included in the macro tree, and its hash is corresponding to the prefix and suffix parts.
What
And
is the RLC adding here?
ours is signature.
Oh no.
And
Random linear combination, right?
random linear combination.
So what is it adding? Like, what are we getting from using this, basically?
So the point is so I think if we want to use some rigid
I used the film marker for This is kind of a cool angle.
yeah, so first my idea is if we have a macro tree which is a commitment of the email body, or we can separate the circuit for Schatz computation and regex verification.
Mm-hmm.
And if each leaf has a random linear combination of the each chunk,
Mm-hmm.
the
So
client side,
chunk here is public chunks or private chunks?
both of them.
Both of them.
or-
Okay.
But actually, the client side prover only needed to generate the regex proof for private chunks.
Yeah.
So they only need to compute the random linear computation and prove the inclusion of this randomly computation of chunk,
Mm-hmm.
and also proves that for the same bytes of the email bytes, private chunk of bytes or email body bytes, it proves that this byte satisfies a defined regex relation,
Mm-hmm.
and I think if we directly contains all of the characters of the email into the marker tree, its marker tree size will be very huge.
Yes.
So by just using the random linear computation, we can reduce this size to the number of chunks.
So I'm not necessarily completely convinced of this because the the prover can switch a bunch of the indices, right? They can say, oh, actually I'm going to redact this extra section, or actually I'm going to redact this like additional thing. I'm going to remove this p, this s, whatever. And so they can just like, because you only check a certain number of times this random linear combination of the SHA, like I don't think you can like, unless you check a lot of times, like 128 or something, like it seems to me like the person can just change which prefixes and stuff that they're looking at to change the Merkle tree, to change the random seed, so that the SHA hashes match like their intended queries, so that because they only set some of them correctly.
At a high level, I agree, but I'm still confused on both these points.
Yeah, so your point is the malicious prover can cheat the proof or verification by switching the randomness.
Yeah, that's my worry.
Well, it's like, or the randomness is deterministic,
Yeah.
or like there's a specific randomness that you have for the email, and the prover. Yeah, or it's different from the usual fiat Shamir kind of thing, where the verifier provides randomness, right? Or no, wait, no, you provide randomness
So,
when you hash the minutes. I'm so confused.
So I think the RSA signature is depending on the so basically
you could use the RSA signature as a
yeah, so
randomness.
I imagine we use the RSA signature as the randomness.
No, but then okay, so then the RSA signature fixes the final hash value.
Yes.
But what I could do is I could just change some of the text in the middle and then fake the hash and say, oh yeah, I hashed it, and this is the previous value, this is the new value, but actually that hash is not correct. And that only needs to be incorrect in one place for you to be able to manipulate the entire email. And so now let's say there's 1,000 chunks in the email that you're hashing, then there's a 999 out of 1,000 chance that any query like returns correct even though it's wrong. And so even though you have like 128 queries or something, it's only 1 minus 999 to the 1,000 to the power of 128, which is still quite manipulatable or something. So I guess I'm not convinced that this. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not convinced that this like choosing random SHA chunk to check would work.
I see.
Have a contract with the government.
I don't think I get the
But you can
putting
use
chunks in the leaves and RL seeing them. Or I don't get.
what I want to try.
So the goal here is to make the size of the Merkle tree smaller, basically.
Yes, and at the same time, we can make it easy to generate the regex proof or only for private chunks.
I see. Because I guess like in for the client side proof, like the client almost acts as if the public chunks don't exist. Like the client only cares about the stuff inside these red brackets, and it only does regex for the characters inside these red brackets. And then also the verifier acts as if these chunks don't exist either. They kind of just do hashing of all the other stuff. So I'm confused at why we ever need a Merkle tree with both the public and the private chunks, because it seems like they're basically just separate. Does that make sense?
Sorry, one more time, please. So it is selected.
Yeah. So it just seems like basically. Okay, there's like a prover here, which says the client, and a verifier, which sometimes is non-succinct and sometimes is like the verifier like makes a proof to like succinctify their thing. So for the prover, you only care about the private chunks in the email, and those are the only things you're regexing over, that you're hashing, that you care about. And for the verifier, it's kind of the opposite. You only care about the public parts of the email that you're hashing. And you take both of these proofs together, and then you say like, okay, cool. Like if you take the public chunks, hash them together with the private like prefixes and suffixes, then you do indeed get the hash in the RSA signature. So basically, it just feels like these are separate things.
Yeah. I see.
So like, let's say if in between P1 and S1, there's some static data and there's some private data. Right? Generally, that would be the case. For example, there's a username and there's some like obviously static text in prefix and suffix.
Yeah, there always will
Right.
be.
Then wouldn't like because you are revealing P1 and S1 to some other third party, wouldn't it be rainbow attackable? Like because they already know the static data for prefix and suffix.
Mm-hmm.
They know that username
Ah.
could be 5 characters to 15 characters.
Mm-hmm.
Can't they just hash it and somehow come up with like the username, like leak the private data?
That's a good point. Let me think.
No, but you're redacting like an entire. You're not redacting only 15
12 block,
characters.
but then there's
Yeah.
also like prefix and suffix which is known to everyone.
So
Yeah.
but that's fine. Like
Yes.
if you know the input of a SHA, sorry, if you know the previous block of a SHA and you know the next block of the SHA, it's unclear to me you can reverse engineer the data in the middle, because that means that SHA hashing one block would be insecure, but it's secure, right?
So I think the point is.
Oh, I see. There's not enough entropy, and they know most of the characters.
Yeah,
so
they
you
know most
replace
of the
it.
characters.
Oh, fine. Okay, yeah.
So
That's a good point.
So the solution for this problem is so if we use so for example, if we use the hash of the RC signature as a randomness, instead of revealing the shadow
Prefixes.
itself, we can just reduce publish the commit so hash of the RC hash of the RC signature and the shadow hash, and it should be commitment because the randomness is tied to the RC signature, to the email, and
Yes, you use
yeah.
commit to the SHA hash. You don't
Yeah.
actually reveal the
Yeah,
SHA
yeah,
hash.
yeah.
Fine,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
works.
So
Yeah.
what you output here is like, output is hash of RSA sig comma like P1 or whatever.
Actually, we cannot use direct hash of the RC signature because if we to do that, the program needed to publish the RC signature. But with the RC signature, it might be able to break the privacy protection because, for example, in the case of spam email, the adversary can easily estimate most of the email paths for the specific user except for some private number. So it can prepare all of the
Hashes.
our hash values, and for example, by verifying the RC signature with this estimated hash values, it can check with this is the signature is corresponding to the email for the ID 0 or ID 1 or ID 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess in that case, all you do is like you just have some random like input essentially.
So we can just use the hash of the RC signature.
Oh, that works.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So we
Yeah.
can put.
So it's a hash of the RC signature plus Schatz hash.
So really quickly, when you guys split the two emails in ZK do you publish the exact SHA hashes or a hash of the SHA hash?
Exact chances. Yes.
So that means that if there's not enough entropy in the emails,
Yeah, but that's why we did like our block was like very large, so there was, and all the private data was chunked together. So like if there's more private data, that adds more entropy.
exactly.
If you just have one private data in.
So, but you guys checked there's more than 100 bits of private data or something.
Yeah, there's more than 100 bits of private data. Also, like the block size is like long. It's more than, it's just not just one 512 bit.
Well, it doesn't matter the block size as long if all that text is deterministic.
Yeah, that's true.
I think this works though. Like you just never output the actual prefix and suffixes. You just add some sort of randomness to it.
Yeah.
You probably do. I feel like you can just do some client-side randomness,
Yeah.
right? And you just prove that you use the same randomness for all of them or something.
Yeah.
Then you'll have to reveal the randomness.
But if clients prover can use any hash, any hash is still okay because
Yeah, as long as
Yeah,
you
yeah,
commit to
yeah.
the hash as well, so you
Yeah.
publish hash of.
Hash
Yeah.
hash.
Yeah, that's fine. You publish that hash as well.
But whatever. Basically, there's like some solution to this where the raw data itself is not revealed. But then in that case, the verifier still has to get the P1 and S1, right?
Yeah. So I think yeah, the prover or the client prover only outputs this output of for P1 and S1, and the verifier or recursion prover checks if the calculated P1 calculated P1 sorry, I think it only need to expose the
Because
yeah,
the verifier
verifier needs S1 to compute the next block condition, so it has to reduce S1.
Yeah.
I see.
You don't have to reveal S1, you have to reveal commit
Yeah,
to
that was
S1.
another problem that we ran into.
Was what?
You need like some version of this, like to be able to continue hashing, you need the previous raw hash, right? To be able to continue
Wait,
hashing.
why do you need the previous raw? That can be a private input, and you can just have the previous like hash of that hash be public.
No, the verifier needs S1
Yes.
to be able to
So it need to compute the next
continue
public
hashing
chunk.
because it doesn't know the data in between P1 and S1, so it needs S1 to be able to continue hashing. So you cannot just output.
Oh, sorry. Verifier here, you mean the server generating the proof, or you mean the blockchain?
The blockchain, you can hide everything from the blockchain, but you still
Yes.
need someone who's generating the server side.
Yeah, so you're saying the server will see
The
S1.
server or in non-succinct case
The verifier.
Right, but that should be okay as long as there's enough entropy before S1, before each S.
Yeah, I guess the rough
But
solution.
reveal the S1. So you have to reveal the S1.
But that's
If
fine.
you reveal the P1, if you reveal the S1, wouldn't you come back to the original attack?
Yeah, but so the person writing the proof has to ensure the amount of entropy between P1 and S1 is at least 128 bits or something.
Okay. So the blocks cannot be 512. You have to like ensure
Yeah,
that
you just kind of add some more shit on the other side, essentially, to.
non-static shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be non-static. It has to be private or like variable information or something.
But I guess I'm confused at like how this isn't an attack for.
The whole email.
Yeah.
Generally, there's enough private data and
Yeah.
also like non-static. Like so, all these emails have like some sort of a links and stuff, and that is like very random. But that.
It's like some
Just
UUID.
some
UIDs
yeah.
and stuff that
That makes
somehow
sense.
gives you like enough randomness to be able to not invert.
I see. Okay, so you basically need enough of this to be able to like not rainbow attack this specific data you're trying to find here.
Yes. So this approach should assume the enough randomness of the email bytes itself or email body itself.
Right. I guess I should like maybe wait, taking one step back, like now that I'm thinking about this, like what parts of a email need to be private generally? Or like is it just like self-identifying information or something like this that you want to keep private? Is that basically it?
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to keep private in emails? There's like I know for like monetary stuff you like might want to be like, oh, like I have greater than 100,000 instead of saying the specific number. But talking to Reclaim, it seems like no one actually gives a fuck about that sort of proof. Like everyone, if you're ever doing like a financial style thing, you just want the exact number, basically. Like if you want to like give someone loan or credits, you don't want to know if they're greater than 100,000. You want to know exactly how much they are greater than 100,000. And also for the user, like you want to get the maximum loan that you can get. So
You're
like
gonna get the exact value.
exactly. So that sort of like making a claim about your private data, I think is like at least in the financial use cases is like not very useful.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's true.
But maybe there's some edge case where maybe for insurance, like you gain something from hiding some parts of it because you don't want them to know everything. I don't know. But for loans and credit, it's definitely just like you want the raw number. And you just are using CK for verifiability and not privacy. So if it's just personally identifying information, then yeah, I guess you basically need to like include enough shit around all the other parts to like do that. There's kind of another like half solution here where it's like if you just like offload this to some server to make the succinct proofs for you, and they don't, this is like not trustless, but it's like you just trust them to like not care that much or something, to not rainbow attack your like random email data, and they just make a proof, and then you just have the proof of the other hash.
Or you can
stuff.
send in the whole email and trust me.
It's true. This is at least like a step above that, but yeah, I agree. It's like how much of a step is this? Unclear. Okay, interesting. Wait, isn't there also something where like you might not know exactly? No. I was gonna say like for different people, like the 512-bit windows or like thousands, like basically like 512 times
Just
n
shift.
bit windows like shift a little bit in the email essentially, and so then it's like, oh, maybe like for different people it'd be, at least it's not rainbow attackable because the parts you cut off are going to be like different for different people, but you could like grind on one specific thing and just go through like everyone's name in the world and then hash everything and then find their name or something. But yeah, it's not rainbow attackable at least, which seems good. Interesting. What are you sending out?
Username and password of the Signature Singularity Twitch and YouTube channels.
Why for everybody?
Yeah, so anyone can live stream.
Sure. You already set it up?
Yeah, I just doing.
Nice.
Is this coffee?
Unclear. Or yes, definitely.
How am I supposed to make this?
Did you just buy it?
No.
Open the lid? What's
I mean,
your-
did someone else drink it?
Huh?
Someone else has been drinking it.
Like, is this supposed to be drunk as it is, or like poured?
No, as it is.
As
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. That's like a vending machine. Latte.
Maybe it's for us.
Nice. Okay, so I guess there's also it's just thinking about like how much entropy there is. Like for an Uber email, for example, like if I reveal the specific address I left from, unless they have like other information about where I am in the world, this is basically unattackable, right? Like I guess if they know my home address, they could figure out that I left from my home address or something.
Yeah.
But they won't be able to figure out like where I went to, unless they like rainbow attacked all of SF or something like this. Interesting.
I don't know. Like, we should also maybe quantify the entropy. But yeah, it should be enough entropy for it to be not really.
But then when it comes to something like Venmo transactions or something, it's like, oh, there's user IDs and actor IDs.
There's user IDs, actor IDs,
What
but
the
those are
fuck
like
is-
small ones.
what's
Those are like 19 digits.
What's an actor ID, by the way?
It's just the other guy.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because we did look into the circuits. Interesting.
Oh no, I just looked at the raw HTML for Venmo email.
Oh, okay. So it's just like the other guy. But then that itself is repeated multiple times, so that adds to entropy. Plus there are some random numbers here and there in the email. Just names here and there in the email.
Right.
Multiple places. If someone adds an emoji, that adds another 140 characters of randomness.
40 characters.
140.
Emojis are 140 characters.
Because they're images, so it's like one love.
Holy shit. Oh my god, if you want to add, if you want to get privacy, just throw emojis.
Throw images.
That's so funny.
So overall, there's enough kind of entropy.
But yeah, basically that's the only thing you want to keep private is like your name and like your user ID and shit like this.
So where's this coffee?
I
Should do I get this from vending machine?
Sorry?
Vending machine?
no, it's a you can buy it in the convenience store.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it coffee bliss here? Like
There's like infinite.
So you can buy the coffee in the convenience store.
do I get like a
It's a so you can drip it the coffee from the machine.
drip
Yeah.
coffee?
So we can try it right now. Yeah.
Sure. I I learned Europe, now I need to learn Japan.
Have you been to the US?
No, but US should be easy. Medium.
Pretty trivial, yeah. You need a car though.
If they make stuff like this in US, people are not gonna understand. This is very Japan specific.
Yeah.
Japan is very Japan specific.
It's true. It's very stylized. Ooh, Dara said in the ZK chat, use a VRF maybe.
Wait, I don't know. What you do the stuff that PLSN is doing, because they are also doing like selective disclosure stuff, and it's like
Yeah, have they thought about similar stuff too?
non-system, yes, non-system use cases. Like for example, in garbled circuits, you can just like encode stuff, send it to the other guy using OT, and then I don't like get it, like I only get 5% out of it.
Yes.
But apparently there's a way where you like just transfer one bit to reveal the private thing. Like you just need to transfer one bit and the whole thing is revealed or unrevealed. So
Is
it's
this
like,
Vol? Is this like the Vol-based stuff or something
Yeah,
else?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Vol is thrown around while they discuss this.
Right.
They have not added, like I understand the 2PC TLS bit, like I understand that bit. So there are two parts of the protocol. One is the MPC TLS bit, and then there's selective disclosure on the MPC TLS bit.
Yeah.
Now after the notary attests to the data, right? That becomes like ZK email. There's a signature, there's a data. You need to selectively disclose stuff about the data.
Yeah.
Right? And they are implementing that API right now.
Okay, cool. So I should
Beyond that point, there's no difference between signature coming from the source itself or the signature coming from the notary. There's a signature and there's data.
Right.
Right. So after that point, even ZK email. So they can use ZK regex.
Yeah.
And we could use their selective disclosure API.
Right. If you don't care about on-chain stuff.
You could also do on-chain stuff.
With their thing?
Yeah, maybe if you do it. If you do the same thing that they're doing inside the circuit, maybe. But yeah, they are not like they are more focused on off-chain stuff. So
Nice. Yeah. I should ask them what their deal is.
they do also use a bunch of Merkle.
Oh wait, I think okay. I actually remember them talking about this, and I think the tricks that they can do is that like they can choose how the data is hashed and
Yeah,
committed
which
to.
signature is used, which hash it. They can choose that. But
Right.
here you are
You're stuck with
with
SHA.
ours, yeah, so that's true.
Right. So I think this is the big difference for them. I think what they literally do is they just like Merkleize with Poseidon tree or something like this the parts that they want to selectively reveal. Like they're kind of doing this inner step essentially,
Yeah.
but like the notary is also the signer in this case.
it signs the Merkle root.
It signs like what it wants to exactly. Yeah. So you're kind of okay. There's not really a good analogy, I think, but it's like roughly like the client is like notarizing the parts that it wants. I don't know. Yeah, something like that.
Alright, should we call it a wrap on the stream here?
I think so. So okay, the main takeaway here is like for this scheme to work with like full privacy, and like an untrusted verifier or server, then there needs to be enough entropy in the redacted sections for it to not be attackable. However, at the same time, it's not rainbowable because like the 512-bit segment that you're going to open up is going to be slightly different for different people because like there's going to be different like starts of the email or like different like your name is going to be longer in certain parts. So like it like the window will be different, and you can also potentially add like more windows on other sides to like give yourself more non-rainbowableness.
I would argue it's still rainbowable.
Yeah,
Even if you're shifting it,
You just
still
rainbow
just
all
pre-compute.
all 512 shifts or whatever.
All 512 shifts.
Yeah. But I guess you could just add more things on each side.
Yeah, the only way to add more randomness is to increase the block size. Like
Right.
increase the
And then hope you get some weird like UUID thing
yeah.
in the
But then it becomes very email specific though. Then it does not work for the generalized case.
right. I also wonder then it seems like, yeah, if you do want full privacy, then like you need some sort of fast hashing thing, something like zkboo or vol or banias or something. Man, you gotta just hash the whole email. That fucking sucks.
But like you're.
It's so annoying. The emails are so long.
Wait, I'm confused because you can always still do the hashing on the server side. Like, why can't you just still do that?
Well, yeah, but then at some point you need to do a large enough window for there to be entropy, and that just like might be the whole ass fucking.
It's not going to be the whole email, right? There's enough entropys scattered through the email that it's probably not.
Depends on the email.
Yeah, and the other thing is that like also then this needs to be a lot more like tailored to things. Like you need to like think for emails instead of just being like highlight this section, boom, just move on.
I mean, you
So-
could, still, like, you could still do SHA-256 no but
Sorry.
for your non-on-chain use case, right? Just
So
hash the whole email.
It's slow.
Wait, so I have one more point. You only need to.
Supposed to be fast.
No.
Sorry, really quick.
It's
You
not fast.
you only need to reveal S1. You don't need to reveal P1 ever. So it's only between the S's that you need to have enough entropy, not between each P task.
But they will know P1, right? They can just hash.
Ah,
You know.
They get to the P2
right.
themselves.
Server does learn that.
Or the verifier learns this.
Right. So then they can match that P2 with the S2 that they're given. Okay, that's annoying. Never mind.
Can
Okay.
you blind hash things? No, that's not how that works.
Oh, like what if you could like homomorphically do it or something?
FHEZK.
Could you do 2PC
2PC what?
to like
Between the client and the server?
encode the email,
Yeah.
send it to the server. The server can hash or say verify.
Like you like FHE the email basically, or 2PC?
2PC the email. And send it to the server. The server performs the signature verification.
This should work.
The
I just don't
server
know how to
performs
do
the
it.
regexing. It sends you back with an attestation on the encoded stuff, and then reveal parts of it. So because for example, even TLS for the non on-chain use cases, TLS is trustless, right? So if you're looking for trustless, you could run the same thing that they're running, but run it for emails. So it will be 2PC email. You take the email, you encode it, you send it to the server. The server performs the SHA verification. The server performs the RSA verification. The server attests to the email.
Wait,
Right?
but how is this trustless? Like you're trusting the server, or like this only
No,
works.
you're not trusting.
No,
the
you can
server.
verify the ZK proof the server generates. Like
No,
once
there's
you,
no ZK proof here.
So
So
what is the server doing? The server's doing
the
hashing.
server
Is also the
attests-
verifier? Is that what's going on here?
Huh?
Like the server is also the verifier.
The server is the verifier.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but that's you can't do this on chain then.
So yeah, definitely not on chain.
But
I
like,
mean, you could do it on chain if you're willing to trust the verifier.
yeah, but that's not a good assumption.
Yeah.
But
Just back to Chainlink.
so maybe.
But it works for his case though. Like there are two parties.
Right. Right.
They
so,
can do inter between.
right. So instead of sending the actual email for the verifier to hash themselves, you just do a 2PC on the hashing, basically, for the other segments, roughly.
Come again.
So like the main problem with this scheme here is like when it comes to the server doing these hashes, it basically learns like P1 and S1. And there's some potential bad case in which like if you know P1 and S1 and the entropy is not very high, you can just guess what's in between. But instead, like the server essentially like does this hashing without learning P1 and S1 at these different stages.
Yeah, they do the hashing on the whole email without learning anything about the email.
Well, I guess like the thing is, I still want to be able to like pull out segments of this as a client, and be able to use those segments.
So if you get an attestation after they have verified the whole email, if you get an attestation from the encoded version of the whole email,
Yeah.
then you can reveal parts of it to the server itself, to the other guy.
Right, but you can't like then reuse this for somebody else. Like,
If no,
I have to do this whole process again with them.
yeah, you have to do it. It will be per two parties. So for every two parties, they will need to do it in between themselves.
Right.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Okay, what if
2PC email is actually alpha though. This is
Yeah.
interesting. We should explore
Two
this.
PC emails is very
Yeah.
Okay.
In your case, it works
Right.
pretty well. Yeah, go ahead.
what if you could do something where you like split the witness? Like you know how like there was that old research that people did where you like NPC the witness and you share it with the server, but you still do the same amount of computation on
Collaborative
both
ZK
sides.
snarks.
Yeah.
NPC
So-
ZK, yeah.
Yeah, but okay, but so what if there's a new way to split the witness where it's like, okay, I'm gonna hash a few more blocks so that there's enough entropy, and then
Wait, no,
I'm-
NPC ZK already solves this. Wait, what do you mean? Like, you just have two people make the ZK proof over the hashing stuff. Neither of them learns P1, S1, P2, S2, and you're good to go.
sorry, we're trying to do a different thing here where the client does no work.
Right.
So
Like, the client doesn't do any work here. Like, you just have two parties work together. I guess you need to trust them to not conclude.
sorry, the client is one of the parties. That's the only way to do this. So so what I'm suggesting is actually I shouldn't have brought that up. That's unrelated to this. So
I see.
the thing I'm trying to suggest is the server is only like the server is hashing from some point to some other point, and the idea is that what if the client hashed the first few blocks to add enough entropy, and then sent like I don't know proof of that over or something, and the server just used that and then started from like some point in between S1 and P2, and then hashed the rest and then proved that. So like.
Isn't that just the same as expanding the block, the private chunk block?
No, it's not expanding the block because I'm not sending the server a ZK proof that I hash from S1 to S1.5. I'm sending them just like some like witness values or something. Not witness values. You would send some.
But then if there is from the point they are starting the hashing,
yeah,
if there is any private data.
correct. So this is only for S1 to P2. Like this is to avoid the server getting the values of S1 and P2. Is that like I hash the first few blocks and I hash the last few blocks, and I just send the middle part to the server that it's okay if they know the beginning and ending hashes of, but then I hash the beginning.
The chunk there. That's exactly.
But if you're not doing this inside of a ZKP, how can you be
Yeah, and
sure
then just
that...
reveal all the data.
Or no, like, how can you be sure that, like, you didn't just invent some... Oh, wait, you can't invent a section in between and still get to the right end
No, but then
hash.
you're right because that eventually needs to be included in the proof. But is there like some sort of proof splitting thing? Like if you're using some recursive proof scheme? No, actually, never mind. This doesn't work. Yeah,
Also, I just realized 2PC email is not alpha because TLS is just way better than email if you're going to do two-party stuff. You can just get everything on TLS. The nice thing about email is there's a signature, and so you can use this in a bunch of places. This is like this is the main benefit of ZK email, basically.
2PC email.
Like
why do 2PC email if you can do 2PC TLS?
Yeah, exactly.
If you're gonna accept a 2PC trust assumption.
Because this is only like you can only do this with one other person, and like TLS data is like infinitely more expressive than an email thing. But the problem, the nice thing about email is that you can make a proof and then you can use it for like 100 people, or a lot of people can like interpret this proof, and they didn't have to be the other party in the 2PC.
That's true.
So 2PC email is not alpha, sadly.
So
2PC email is just a
Just worse.
subset of
Yeah.
subset of 2PC TLS.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of sending the email to the other guy and doing 2PC over it, you just notarize the Gmail
Exactly.
response.
Exactly. Yeah.
So actually, there are no interactive or goblet circuit based ZKP.
Let's go.
Yeah. So it's best.
But that you explained that right? It doesn't work. It needs witness encryption to be able to be practical today.
No, just a garble circuit with ZK. You don't need the
Non-interactive
whole.
GC.
Yeah. So I think in the interactive setting, the verifier can make a goblet circuit and send it to the prover,
Yeah.
and this circuit checks some relation, and only if it has a correct relation, the circuit outputs 1.
Yeah.
Then the prover cannot make a malicious. The malicious prover cannot make an output encoding or goblet wire for the output level 1, or if the witness is invalid, so if it can submit the correct goblet level for output 1, the verifier can check that the prover has a correct witness. However, it requires the verifier to generate the private randomness, not public randomness. So we cannot make it non-interactive easily. So the idea of non-interactive goblet circuit ZKP is the prover makes a goblet circuit, and the prover shows that the prover generates goblet circuit, and the verifier evaluates this goblet circuit. But problem is we cannot ensure, the verifier cannot ensure that the goblet circuit is generated for the honest circuit, like output one only for valid witness. So the idea is repeating this many times and requiring the prover to the prover makes multiple goblet circuits. So for example, we assume the prover makes two independent goblet circuits, and the verifier says, please open the first or second goblet circuit. So in that case, the prover will sense the randomness used to generate the goblet circuit of the requested one, and for the opposite goblet circuit, it only reviews goblet input for that circuit, and the verifier can check first whether the submitted goblet circuit is corresponding to the honest verification circuit with this randomness. And for the opposite circuit, goblet circuit, it can simply evaluate the goblet circuit and check if its output is corresponding to level one. And it still has soundness error one second 0.5 probability. So it repeats this computation, this protocol many times. Then it can achieve the enough soundness error.
But you're still relying on the other party to do the right thing, right? So it's still like 2PC.
No, so actually, we can compute this randomness from hash of the commitment, hash of the goblet circuit as a fiat shamir, because this is public randomness.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and
this sounds a lot like MPC in the head, basically.
Yeah, it's
similar
Yeah.
ideas.
But
We just learned about MPC in the head yesterday. It's fucking awesome.
I don't know what
You can publish a live stream. You can watch it on the.
You guys learned about it yesterday?
Yeah, we published a live stream of it. 45 minutes, you'll understand it.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So go back to this Scherzer competition. For example, yes. So if we apply this goblet circuit based GKP to this one, the prover only needed to compute the goblet gates for each Scherzer computation. So although its total computation cost and the so yeah, I don't think it's the ideal solution, but the problem was the verifier want to I think the first point is we cannot directly apply the two-party computation for this proof generation, except for the solution like performs GKP proof generation algorithms inside the 2PC like goblet circuit. However, so it essentially just says we can perform some right proof generation scheme like goblet circuit 1 or ZKBoo on the client side. But it's not the complete solution, so sorry.
All good.
It's good to explore these ideas, but yeah.
So again, the core problem here is that we need to hide P1 and S1
Yes.
from a potentially untrusted server, so that they can't guess what's in between for the private information, which is usually just like personally identifiable information like your name or other like.
Yeah, although I would suggest like going a level below and stating the problem as it is rather than sticking to this solution, because this there might not be a way here.
Right.
This might be more convoluted compared to like just
So
stating the goal and starting from there.
You're just trying to like fix this entropy problem for email where there isn't enough entropy, but like for most emails you should just be fine with this solution.
I just haven't looked at enough emails to know.
Yeah, I don't know.
We can look at some emails, but I'm happy enough with the solution right now. Like this feels like an optimization, right? Like, instead of hashing, I don't want the client to hash blah blah. to hash 3 blocks, I'm gonna hash 1 block. How can we do it? And it feels like adding a lot of complexity.
Yeah, I kind of feel like. I think for me, actually, the bigger question is like, I don't yet have a good sense of what stuff needs to remain private.
Okay, so here's my proposal.
Yeah.
We eat lunch, and then we look at some emails.
Also, if you
I already had food, so you guys should.
Okay, I'm
go get
super
food.
hungry.
write a generic compiler for this, then all you need to do for each email is just specify, like, look at the email, look at how much entropy there is
Yeah,
around the gravity,
exactly.
and just specify like those two, like
Yeah,
here
yeah.
and here.
Like,
Looks good.
you could even have an automatic compiler. You send it 2 emails, and it just looks where is it different. Okay, so this is where the random bits are. Okay, so this is the
Right,
minimum
I would
amount.
say that still requires a bit of human input. So write a compiler, specify for each email, like if this is the subject, this is the from. So P1 index should be 2, S1 should be 24, right? Just
Right.
specify those for each email. You need to do it manually. From there on, the compiler will take over and do all
Yeah, I
the
can do it.
and
But
generate the circuits.
So I'm arguing you don't even need to do the P1 S1. You can upload 2 emails, and some like heuristic algorithm can figure out what the P1s and S1s should be automatically.
I think. So, I think. Yeah. I think this
That
method
would
is,
also be true.
doesn't need to be very human based, because yeah, the main thing is like where do these things differ? Like yeah, 2 or 3 emails, you just see like okay, this is consistently where there's a difference,
Yeah.
and I guess you still need a human to identify where the private parts are, right?
No, it's just everything that's like different than the 2 emails you just treat effectively as private.
No, that would be
That's too much.
that's too many.
Okay.
Because
Fine, so-
we need the public but non-static things.
Okay. So it highlights it, and the human selects which ones are public, which ones are private.
Like,
That's pretty fine, I think.
yeah, that for each you could do it like you don't want people to generate. Like, I'm pretty sure you have like some specific reasons in mind. Right?
Yeah.
So just do it for